Hello, hello. All right, I've been waiting to do this topic for a while. I'm pretty sure I have not covered it in a video before, though I think I have written about it. So we're going to be talking about how a man can support a woman on a single income in 2024. Hello, I am Zach Rohde, and I am here to help lead you into the relationship of your dreams using instinctual polarity and masculine and feminine communication. All right, let's dive in to this topic. So it's 2024. The economy is completely in the toilet. Politicians worldwide are completely destroying our way of life and inflating away our savings, and they couldn't possibly be doing a better job of screwing up our lives. And so it is harder than ever. Well, I don't even want to say that, but for most men, it is harder than ever to provide for a family on a single income. And so we're looking at something very different than, say, in the 1950s or the 1960s or before that, where it was relatively way easier for just kind of the average man, the common Joe, to go out there, do his blue collar manufacturing job or whatever. It can often be like a more entry-level job and still be able to afford a house, still be able to put food on the table, still be able to offer a woman a lifestyle where she doesn't have to work. And it's a choice, right? Some women were working, but it's a choice rather than something that she has to do because it's basically impossible to survive on a two-person income. Much more difficult. So in a situation today, obviously, a lot of the advice that I give, I'm not even so much focused on the advice of, hey, a man should be solely working and the woman's not working. That would be the most possible polarized dynamic. What I'm more focused on is learning how to communicate as a man or woman. A man stepping into masculine, loving, strong communication, leading his woman, and a woman letting go of control, being vulnerable, opening up her heart, and inspiring a man to take care of her and cherish her and all of that fun stuff. But of course, my work is going to also be related to roles, right? Polarized roles. And there's going to be certain roles that are going to be more polarizing than others. For example, a woman who is providing for the man financially is going to be a hell of a lot less polarizing. It's going to be quite depolarizing compared to the man who's making all of the money. And then both man and woman working, can you have a relatively polarized relationship in that dynamic? Yes, depending on, who's in charge of the money and, certain expectations and everything. It's going to be less polarizing than the man fully making all of the money. That doesn't mean that it's not a good idea to have two people working. I'm not necessarily saying that it shouldn't be that way. I'm just saying, as far as polarity goes, there's going to be certain roles that will be more polarizing than other roles. Okay. So the most polarizing role, and one that a lot of women, not all women, but a lot of women yearn for, is for her to not work and the man to just take care of her, whether that means she's taking care of the children, if there's children, or just being a homemaker, taking care of the home. It might also mean, working a part-time business, but it's like something that she's just doing for fun. The most important thing, regardless, is that the woman, like for to have a lot of polarity, ideally, even if the woman is bringing in an income, she's not responsible for it. She doesn't have any sense of responsibility for it. It's just, this is something that she does for fun. Doesn't matter if what she's doing, like she loses her job or, she quits her business or has terrible next 6 months in her business, whatever. It's fine because the man's got things handled, right? That is such a huge relief for a woman's physiology and psychology, where she doesn't have that any of that sense of responsibility. It's like she just gets to have fun in that way. And for a man whose instincts are fully online, like that's what a man wants. My wife right now, she's fully taking care of our daughter full time, and I prefer it that way. If she eventually has a part-time business where she doesn't need to be responsible for bringing in the money, I want that, right? I don't want her to have that feeling of responsibility in any way. It's not good for her as a woman. That's going to masculinize her as a woman. But the problem is, going back to the core topic of this video, in 2024, that's difficult, right? Like the average, I think like the average income, I'll just talk about American. I think it's around 60,000 US dollars per year for the average person. And of course, like I said, politicians are completely obliterating everything right now. It's getting harder year by year. And so there's going to be a lot of women and a lot of men who, even if you want this dynamic, you're like, man, yeah, but practical reality, how is that possible? Like, that's not really realistic or reasonable. Can't go back in time. So this video is going to hopefully motivate some people and give people some hope and realize, like, it's not impossible. You can do this. You just need to be thinking a bit outside the box. You need to have some understanding of money management, all of that kind of thing. So I'm going to preface what I'm going to say next by talking a bit about myself. Not so much anymore. I'm kind of like the a recovering world's biggest cheapskate in the history of the world. So I spent most of my life, like literally from the ages of 23 to 32, so 9 years, I basically just spent being a playboy, Peter Pan, no responsibility, barely worked, just was meeting women, dating women, living the fun, single man whoring life, okay? Which I don't encourage men to do, but that's what I did. And I lived off of roughly 1,000 Canadian dollars a month, which is about 700 and something American dollars a month. My rent was usually $400 to $500 a month. And by the way, this is in Toronto. This is in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and like downtown Toronto. I lived off of what would it have been for my food budget was a few $100s a month, like, I don't know, $200 a month or something. And I didn't have a car. I would just go, I had a Metro Pass, so that cost like $100 a month to go anywhere that I wanted in the city. I would go out 5 days a week. I just wouldn't drink anything. I just world's biggest cheapskate. So I would just drink water, which is free. I wouldn't go to anywhere where they make me buy bottles. Screw that. I'm just going to get the glasses because that's free. And I just didn't really buy anything. So, $10,000, $11,000 ish, maybe $12,000 max per year is what I was spending. I was making probably for a lot of that, maybe $20,000 to $25,000 a year. So I was saving $10,000 to $15,000 a year. There's ways for people to do that. Now, obviously, if you have a family, if you have like 2 children, it's going to be more expensive than that. If you're supporting a woman as well, it's going to be more expensive than that. But I'm illustrating this because there's a lot of single people who are like, how the hell do you live on less than $50,000 a month or $70,000 a month or even $100,000 a month? Look, when you prioritize living paycheck to paycheck, when you prioritize not going into debt and saving money and sacrifice some comforts and stuff like that, you can live really cheaply if you choose to. Okay. It's just most people, they have different priorities. Now, as a dominant man, as a masculine man, his priority should ideally be, one of his big priorities, to retire his woman, especially if they're going to have children, so that they can keep those children out of those government indoctrination centers and, teach little boys to, I'm not even going to get into it. Not going there on this one. Point is that should be a high priority, to keep his woman more feminine and to be able to raise really healthy, well-adjusted children with high self-esteem and all of that good stuff. And so how do you do that when you've got a family? So say you've got a couple of kids. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my story here to illustrate further. So once I met my wife, I think this was when I was 32. So this was after 9 years of man whoring. Got married, but I was still a Peter Pan, okay, which means I was not dominant. I did not know how, I didn't understand that my role is to fully lead my woman and cherish my woman and provide for my woman, my wife. And so what we did was we did the whole stupid roommate thing, which meant that she paid, even once we got married, you know, our money was fully separate. She would pay for her half of the rent and I would pay for my half, and we would split groceries and we'd pretty much split everything. Now, after it was actually right when we got married. It's actually the day that we got married. Something started shifting in me. And I actually, okay, so full transparency about how bad this was. But this is actually maybe helpful for some men just to, okay, we're going to get there. I got a lot of things I got to discuss here. So up until I got married, my main job that I'd done every year since I was 16, so for more than like 16 years, I was a camp counselor. And that paid for like, I don't know, it made like $7,000 in the summer because I've been doing it so long. So I made, you know, sort of okay money for 7 or 8 weeks. And then I was a medical guinea pig. So I would literally go to med studies and do, what were they, the phase 1 or phase 2, phase 3 trials. I can't remember. I would take like the most reasonably safe drugs possible, like 1 Tylenol. You know, obviously Tylenol's not good for you, but 1 Tylenol every month, who cares, right? That's nothing. And, you know, I'd have to stay in a clinic and I'd make like $3,000 for staying for, I'd have to go back like every couple weekends, but it's basically like 2 weekends and I make $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. And that's what would make my income around $25,000. So part of the reason I bring that up is like, if you're working, if you're a man and you're like, you're really serious about retiring your woman, you should maybe consider being a medical guinea pig, at least in the short term, with really, really safe drugs that aren't going to do anything to your health at all. Don't do the really bad ones. Like, don't do the, you know, the 2020 magic potion. Don't do those if you want to continue being a provider long term. But there's things that you can do like that might be a good thing to do short term. You know, pharma, you know, they're wonderful people over there. There's other things that you can do as well. I'm just giving that as one example where it's like, oh, you know, that's impossible to make money. No, you can make like $20,000 to $30,000 a year by sacrificing, you know, a couple dozen weekends a year. And you, if you have a business, you can also just work on your laptop the whole time because you're not doing anything there. There's ways to, even today, even if you don't have a skill set now, like being a, you know, high ticket coach, for example, there's ways to provide for your family if you have to. You know, if I was not a coach and like I didn't know what the hell to do and I had a full-time job and I really wanted to provide for my wife, I'd be doing something like that if I couldn't think of anything else to do. I don't do that anymore, though. I have no intention of it, but just putting that out there for people. What else? So after I got married to my wife, I like something kind of clicked in me, like a little bit of provider role stuff that hadn't been there before. The full provider instinct didn't come online until we had our son, about what would they be, a year and a half after getting married, something like that, or 2 years. But prior to that, I wanted to, I started an online business. This is another thing that men can do. I made like $80,000, $90,000+ every year selling used video games from like Craigslist and Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace. And I worked like 20 hours a week. So way above the average income, just selling used video games and working way less hours than a full-time job. It's like, I'm giving you these examples so you understand, like, there's options out there for you. You just need to think. You just need to think outside the box a little bit instead of just working your crappy $20, $25 an hour job. There's other things that are way better that you can either supplement your income with that job or do entirely independent, like just get rid of the job, the crappy job, and build something better. So when I had this job, or when I started this business, and I was like, oh my God, I can actually make money here. It sparked something in me where it's like, wow, I could actually afford something amazing like a house for my wife and I. Maybe that would be a good idea instead of living in this kind of crappy apartment that we're splitting the rent on. And so that's what I made that as a goal. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to make enough money to be able to buy a house. And that's what I did over the next 3 years. I saved like literally 85% of my income, something like that. You know, I had to pay my half of the rent and the food, and you know, I had a subway pass that I now got to write off because it was part of my business expense. And all the rest went into buying a house. And I actually paid for the house in full. It was like $250,000. Now I was in Northern Ontario, so it's way cheaper than saying buying a house in Toronto or New York, or, you know, in basically any reasonably big city. But I paid for it all in cash because I don't do mortgages. You know, I'm not going to get scammed into the next housing collapse like 2008. It's going to be worse than 2008 when it happens. I wanted to pay for it all in full. I'm very conservative that way. I don't like to have any kind of debt, good debt or bad debt. Don't care. I'm paying for it in cash. And so I'm saving out of like say a 90K income, I'm saving like 75K. And the reason I'm illustrating this, or the reason I'm explaining this, is like, it's because my mindset is I'm capable of being that cheap if I need to. If I need to, I'm capable of being that cheap. And that was, now, of course, my wife was bringing in an income too. So she was paying half the rent. So if I was paying for everything, okay, it might have cost me like $30,000 a year to take care of both of us. And of course, she would have had to make some kind of sacrifices as well as far as her spending budget. But it could have been done. If I was serious about it, if I'm like, babe, we're going to be doing some sacrificing for the next few years so that I can fully take care of you and retire you, she'd be like, okay, I trust you, blah, blah, blah. On that note, with us, she had an income at that point, and I wanted her to have an income. I hadn't actually, to be fair, I hadn't considered back then that like I would actually be retiring her. I just wanted to buy us a house. That was where my goal was. It was years later, once I really started going into polarity down that rabbit hole, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want my wife to have to work. That sucks. And she doesn't like her job. Like, why is this happening? But at that time, it made sense. And, you know, from a practical perspective, sometimes it's okay for, there's taxes too. So, but what was it for under 90,000, taxes aren't that much. It's like at the tax bracket I pay now, it's ridiculous. But at that tax bracket is like, I don't know, 10 or 15,000. I can't really remember. And I was able to write off a ton of crap too, like cell phones and computers and stuff like that. All right, where was I here? So two-person income, like it's fine to do that, you know. And even after we moved, you know, my wife, there was actually a point where we moved and my wife was the only person working because the whole 2020 nonsense, I actually had to give up my whole business and start it over. And that's actually how I got into coaching. It's like, it was interesting the way that worked. But it's okay for a woman to have to work part-time, because imagine like if a man buckles down with paying off a house, so then you don't have a mortgage, that's going to be the biggest expense that you have that's gone. And if a woman has to work for a few years, there's going to be practical situations like that. That's one option. Okay. But the most important thing is that the man is focused on retiring his woman. If he's just like, no, I want to be roommates forever and we'll just do 50-50 forever. And, you know, I want you to work full time and we'll also have kids and you'll take care of the kids and do chores and I'll just work, or like whatever. We'll play patty cake together because, you know, I don't actually feel that provider instinct. That's obviously a problem. But for a woman having to work temporarily, there's going to be situations where that makes sense. Okay, we're just living in practical reality here. It's like, I will talk about dreamland and how to get into dreamland, because dreamland is real. Having that dream relationship is real. But there may be a lot of practical reality stuff that you have to go through to get to that point first. Okay. So that's what I did. Paid off the house in a few years. And then eventually, a year after that, so that was 2020. Then I became a coach near kind of midway through 2020 during all the, don't even want to say these words because it might screw up my algorithm. The government made us stay in our homes. And then I started coaching, and then I eventually started making a hell of a lot more money than I ever had before. And then it was like a year after that, then I'm like, it was in that trajectory that I'm like, okay, no more working for you. You quit your job. It was right after she got pregnant. She was feeling morning sickness and all that stuff. Like, this is ridiculous. Stop. Like, she was even working from home, and that was even too hard for her. So I'm like, just no more. You're done. I'm retiring you at that point. And so the last part of this, or I think this is the last part of this, is about, what's possible for a man. Prior to 2017, so I think it was when I got married in 2017, that's when I started my online video game business. I never thought that I'd be able to make like 70, 80, 90, 100K a year. Like, that's crazy. And that was part of the reason I wasn't working, because I was just like, no, I don't want to work for $15 or $20 or $25 an hour. It's just not worth it. I'd rather just be the world's biggest cheapskate and not work. Like, that's just so little money for spending an hour of my time. That's so hard to do. But then when this kind of fell into my lap and I realized what was possible, it's like, I worked my butt off. I worked so hard because I was probably making, I don't know what it would end up being, like $80 an hour or something like that. And it's like, yeah, I'll work for $80 an hour. That sounds good. And then eventually with my coaching business, it's like hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour. I don't know, $500 an hour. I don't even know. And the coaching business as well was another huge realization of what's possible, because prior to that, prior to 2020, did I ever think I could be in this position? I always thought I kind of deserved it. Like, yeah, I'm amazing. I should be able to, make tons of money talking about the stuff I love. But I didn't actually have that deep belief, that conviction that I could actually do it and had a way to do it. I just kind of fell into it. And so there's two things when it comes to always pandering to the feelings of women. Yeah, keep listening, my friend, because this can actually change your life. If you have this idea that I'm pandering to women, then you don't understand the first thing about what I'm teaching, and that's on you. Okay, so back to and that's probably your triggers around not being able to make a good income and provide for a woman. That's your wound. That's not mine. All right. So around so making an income. So what is possible for a man when he has conviction? First of all, this is the other thing. Part of what allowed me to make this much money is because I had the desire to increasingly be in this role. Like, even before Polarity, before I learned about Polarity, it started shifting. And then even more so once I started learning about Polarity, like 100%. So it's that desire of, I want to be able to take care of my woman fully. Because if it was just for me, it's like, I don't even care. Like, I don't need this much money. What's the point of it? I make way more money than I could possibly spend. But because I'm taking care of my woman, and because I'm thinking like, ooh, what if I died? Or what if I wasn't able to provide in the same way? I need to be able to take care of them. I need to have enough savings. I need to, think in the future about what could possibly happen to make sure that no matter what, my wife is taken care of, and my daughter is taken care of. That's what's allowed me, a big part of what's allowed me to make this much money, because I don't care about it for myself, really. I can live in a closet. It doesn't make a difference to me. I could live in a tent. Well, maybe not in the winter months of Canada, but otherwise I could. So the thing is that most men are living so far below their potential. And when they say like, oh yeah, I'm like getting screwed over by the government and taxes and inflation, and like there's not many job opportunities, all of that is true. the economy is garbage and it's going to get way worse before it gets better. But if a man recognizes that he can pretty much do anything if he really sets his mind to it and thinks out of the box and has that desire to do it, if he has that reason to do it, then he can do it. The main limitation that every man has is not the government, it's not inflation, it's not where he lives, it's his own limiting beliefs about what he can accomplish, as well as his own lack of desire and drive to accomplish it. So there's two things that can help men shift to become that sole provider if they want to. One is getting a lot cheaper, becoming more of a cheapskate if necessary. Stop wasting money on things that you don't need to spend it on. And like, there's so much that I'm not going to go into that in this video, but there's so much that a man can do. It's like you're wasting like $8 on orange juice and like milk and just garbage at the grocery store that's completely unnecessary and isn't even healthy for you. And then and like living in places that are way more expensive than you should actually be thinking of staying based on your income. And then there is the potential of your income if you really found your area of genius and did that thing. Like polarity is my area of genius. Teaching polarity, understanding it, being able to break it apart into a way that men and women can understand, except this Nigwan guy who clearly doesn't understand it at all. And write books about it and do courses on it and do one-on-one coaching on it. That's my area of genius. Everybody has an area of genius, both men and women. And if a man wants to fully provide for his woman, one thing he really needs to figure out is what that is, what his purpose is, what he is amazing at, what he can do better than other people, what fills him up and he's passionate about. And in the meantime, as a man's working towards that, because so many men have been beaten down from the public school indoctrination system, from their mother, from their father, from society, from feminism, from all of that garbage, that it can take a while to really break out of it. And in the meantime, be cheap, or do med studies, or do some other kind of side gig, do what you can, but you can 100% get to the point where you can fully take care of your woman. Okay, so last two things I'm going to say about this, and then I'm going to wrap up. One, thank you, Nigwan, because you have given me a fantastic idea for my next live stream about how I pander to the feelings of women. I'm sorry, I'm not your typical red pill, victim mindset guy who hates women and is stingy with what he wants to give to a woman because he thinks that's how he holds on to power. I'm far beyond that. I lived that life for a long, long time ago. So that's going to be my next topic. I'm already passionate about delivering some fun there. But then for everybody else who's watching, who's open to this, who's resonating with this, who's like, polarity is amazing and you want more of it. This is specific for the women. For a moment, we are doing our next polarity masterclass in 10 days. It is called Heal Your Heart with Polarity. Okay. And what I'm going to be teaching you on that masterclass is how the most powerful form of healing work available on the planet. It's not therapy. It's not breath work. It's not meditation. It's not somatic work. It's not any of that stuff. All that stuff is great. I support all of it. Well, not therapy, depending on what kind of therapy it is. Some therapy, a lot of the traditional therapy, no, that's garbage. But polarity work is what supercharges everything and takes you way further than any of that stuff could. Some of that stuff is great to supplement into polarity work, right? Like any kind of working on your feelings, somatic work, that stuff is super important alongside with polarity work. But polarity work is going to take you all the way. It's not going to just transform your love life, which is so important in itself. Make sure you got a man who's fully taking care of you. And, if you want it, then fully providing for you because you're inspiring him to do so in the way that I've talked about on this video. But also what it's doing is it's healing your own wounding. right? Your own limited beliefs about yourself, your lack of self-worth, the parts of you that you're not fully loving, your lack of confidence, your insecurities, your self-judgments, your control issues, your, shyness and like avoiding sharing who you really are, not being fully in your voice and in your radiance. It heals all of that stuff. Isn't it about time that you learn how to fully heal? That's what we're going to show you how to do on this masterclass. 10 days from now, book your spot now, polaritymasterclass.com. It is going to be an amazing 2-hour experience. It's going to really open your eyes and help you shift in the right direction. Go to the link now, just put it in the address, polaritymasterclass.com. Learn all about it. We got a full description for you on that website. Then book your spot, and I will see you in 10 days. We're going to have amazing 2 hours together. That's it for this one. See you next time.